You keep sighing, Pika. Your fingers halted their movement across the ivory keys, ceasing the string of notes floating on the air. Sorry. Am I bothering you? If you were being honest, his restless aura was starting to set you on edge. But you knew why he was feeling this way. And you sympathized. No. You moved to sit near him on the bed, and he curled his legs up to make space for you. I know waiting is the hardest part. But cheer up, okay? This is a good, reliable lead. I know they'll get back to us soon. The two of you had requested a profile from the Hunter Association's archives. The man from the fortune, whose name was Salvatore Gambino. As a mobster, his information was private and guarded. Took digging. After paying the association for its services, all that was left to do was wait for the data to be sent. But as you'd become well aware of by this point, patience was not Kurapika's forte. How about something to take your mind off it? There's a chessboard in that cabinet over there. His lips curled slightly at the suggestion. Okay. Want me to make you some tea? He finally looked up with a little glint of indulgence in his eyes. Would you? I'd really hate to ask, but... Say no more. You held up a hand and grabbed your phone off the piano. Be right back. Thank you, traveler. You were immensely surprised by Kurapika's quiet acceptance of your insistent generosity. He almost always put up a fight about being waited on, so this struck you as out of character for him. You looked down at your phone as the elevator door shut. Ah, that's why. You huffed through your nose in amusement when a hefty sum of money suddenly appeared in your direct deposit. You told him time and time again that your room and board was sufficient compensation for your help, but Kurapika just wouldn't take no for an answer. Damn it! When did he steal my bank account information? You shook your head. Freaking hunters. Only Kurapika would perform such an underhanded act just so he could give you something. It struck you as rather cute. In an odd, illegal sort of way. And you realized you were smirking by the time you reached the first floor. Upon emerging, you noticed a familiar figure on a bench near the front desk, surrounded by an obscenely large pile of shopping bags. She glanced up at you and smiled. Melody, right? As you approached, you noticed some very prominent bags under her eyes. She nodded politely, as if it was all she had the energy to do. Having a rough day? Sometimes I feel like shopping with Neon is more tiresome than the Hunter exam. You chuckled sympathetically. You poor thing. Want me to get you anything? I make a mean tea. Kurapika seems to really like it, and he always struck me as the picky type. Sure. She gave you a tired smile, and you nodded. Okay, I'll grab the stuff. You hadn't actually expected her to take you up on that offer, but you returned nonetheless with 2 tea bags and 2 cups you already added water to. That's generous of you. Thanks very much. Yeah, well, you looked like you could use a pick-me-up. And it's the least I can do. You shot her a cautious glance as you sat down. Kurapika, told me your abilities, so I wanted to thank you for not saying anything before. No need to thank me. Her airy voice struck you as soothing somehow. If you don't mind me asking, what is he to you? Since I already know you're not his secretary. We're co-applicants from the last Hunter exam. I'm helping him hunt down nefarious people. She seemed to contemplate that for a moment, as if it was not quite the answer she was expecting. Why do you ask? Curiosity, mostly. She swirled the tea bag in her cup and watched the liquid's color darken. It just struck me as unusual that 2 personalities so dissimilar would become close. Dissimilar? What do you mean? Please don't misunderstand. I don't hold any sort of resentment towards Kurapika. But I can't help but notice how burdened he is by a deep and insatiable rage. I hear him plagued by it every day, and it seems to be his one and only driving force. You frowned at her assessment, With you, I hear nothing of the sort. And you don't seem to delude yourself into believing you don't need others the way he does. Take it easy on him. He's not really like that. She looked up to meet your eyes, and your composure faltered. Not to insult your comprehension or anything. Melody smiled sweetly. I can tell you care a great deal for him. He's lucky to have someone like you in his life to keep him grounded. That's nice of you to say. I do the best I can to help him out. You removed the tea bags and topped the cups off with a generous helping of cream. I hope we can be friends, Melody. I'd really like that. She smiled once more and accepted the drink from your hands. Welp, I'd better be getting this up to Kurapika. You stood. Gotta keep that whole rage thing at bay. She giggled lightly at your jest. Hope to see you around soon. And you as well. She waved you off as you returned to the elevator. Upstairs you found the blonde in the exact same spot as you left him. Unblinking eyes fixed on the laptop, as if the intensity of his gaze would somehow make the association respond faster. You're still staring at that thing? He said nothing. You should give it a rest before you burn out your pretty eyes. You walked over and plunked the hot beverage on the nightstand. Here you go, made with love. Thank you. Your comment seemed to have surprised him enough for you to easily swipe the laptop from his hands. I was using that. I'm attaching my aura to this. You sat the object on the piano and planted a finger on it. If you pick it up before I get out of the shower, I'll know. Kurapika's posture sank back towards the bed, and he donned a warm smile. No need. I promise not to touch it. When you narrowed your eyes skeptically at him, he crossed his heart with his pinky finger, an allusion to his judgment chain, adding weight to his pact. Okay, fine, I believe you. You cast him one more suspicious glance as you gathered your towel and pajamas, but he had already gotten comfortable and was holding your cup of tea with both hands. Once you started the water, you hollered back at him through the bathroom door. By the way, Kurapika. I'm changing my bank account information. The water was too loud for you to hear his chuckle. Good luck with that. He sassed right back, and you didn't even have to look to be able to perfectly visualize the smug grin he was wearing. Once the hot water had thoroughly relaxed you, you exited the bathroom. The laptop appeared untouched, which pleased you. Unfortunately, it was then you caught sight of the bright little phone screen resting between Kurapika's fingers. Pika! You whined. What? He looked up innocently. I kept my promise to stay off my laptop like you wanted. Puh! Kurapika let out a yelp of surprise when you abruptly leapt forward and wrestled him to the bed. You'd never heard him make a noise quite like that, so it was safe to assume he was legitimately startled by your action. It was mere seconds before you pinned him down, surely only because he let you. You insufferable workaholic! What am I going to do with you? Big round eyes peered up at you inquisitively, as if waiting for you to answer your own question. It was now you caught yourself straddling his waist with your legs, and you were hovering over his face far too close. You quickly rolled off, before your impending blush could get the better of you. You turned your nose up. I was going to help you research after my shower. You crossed your arms with a pout. I just wanted you to relax and enjoy the tea I made you. If it makes you feel any better, I thought it was delicious. Yeah, well, with that attitude of yours, you shouldn't get used to the service. You jerked an eyebrow at him. But you're my secretary, right? Isn't that part of your job description? It was almost like he was asking to be tackled again. Tell me, Kurapika, do you enjoy provoking me? Maybe a little, he admitted, and you let out an indignant groan. I'm sorry, traveler. His expression softened to a more genuine one. It really wasn't my original intention to deceive you. It just sort of happened that way. He approached you and offered the phone in his hand. What can I say? I'm just not used to someone taking such good care of me. You blinked at him, and it was all you could do to not melt in the face of his appreciative silver eyes. It was a good thing you weren't wearing socks, or he would have charmed them right off. Smooth. You managed to maintain your poker face somehow. Fine, you win. You grabbed the laptop off the piano and tossed it onto the bed. I just remembered something important anyhow. What's that? I hate spiders a heck of a lot more than I hate you. You smirked over your shoulder, and his smile widened. Kurapika seemed to relish the witty banter you shared. You figured it must have been cathartic for him, a much-needed way to release his inner stress, so you didn't mind humoring him every now and again. A comfortable silence enveloped the flat for a long while, as you continued sifting through data. You were unsure how much time passed, but your hair was almost completely dry when Kurapika closed his laptop with a click and a frustrated sigh. Still no word from the organization? Correct. He leaned back against the headboard and rubbed his eyes. The same information seems to be taking me in circles. I might just start fresh tomorrow. Shall I tuck you in, sir? You smirked playfully, and he looked at you. Sorry I couldn't find a more dignified role for you, he replied earnestly. My intent was to cast a degree of detachment between us, in the event that the enemy uncovered my identity. A partner is a much more valuable hostage than a mere secretary. Though you knew he probably didn't mean it that way, his use of the word partner still made your stomach flip. After stowing the silver device in the nightstand drawer, Kurapika plopped on his side atop the covers, body facing the center of the bed. It wasn't long before you noticed him stealing glances at you as you continued to fish for information on the untraceable phone he provided. Do you want to sleep? I can turn out the lights if you like, you asked, assuming that was the reason for his occupied gaze. That's bad for your eyes. Thanks, Mom. You smiled at him once more, but this time he returned it. Lying next to you, he looked so cozy curled up. His blonde hair tousled messily across the pillow. It was cute. I've been meaning to thank you, you know. For the tea? Don't worry about it. No. Yes, thank you for that as well, but I meant it more in a broader sense. Well, until quite recently, I was unaware of just how isolated I'd become since the death of my clan. You and the others opened my eyes to that. This thing I've been missing. He curled a finger to his lips, as if he was trying to mentally unpack a large and complex train of thought. I'm sure you've noticed, I'm not the easiest person to get to know. Or get along with, for that matter. So it's a beautifully refreshing change of pace. To have made a strong connection again. Connections. He quickly corrected himself and cleared his throat. It's probably hard for someone like you to understand, since you openly wear your heart on your sleeve. But it's something I'm rather bad at. Yeah, you can't really do that. You set the phone aside and propped up on an elbow to face him. You wear yours in your eyes. It sounded cheesy in your head, but you were glad you said it when you saw the sweet, heartfelt smile bloom on Kurapika's face. The blonde couldn't help but find something touching in your words. It was a rare occurrence in his experience, to find someone who saw him as more than a polarized spectrum of stoic, then angry, then back again. Someone who could read the blue between the lines. His subtleties. It heavily curbed the loneliness what's existence he denied entirely up until this point, and made him feel stronger as a result. I'm glad we met, he said, gently intertwining his hand with yours. And thank you for staying by my side. It means a great deal to me. Amidst the warm golden lamps casting a glow from either side of the bed, and the dim lights of the dark city skyline, you began to notice a new hue emerging. You know, I read a book a long time ago when I was young, about the adventures of a hunter. It said, no matter what happens, there are people that will help. I have to be honest. after I first encountered the corruption of the world, both inside and outside of my clan. I must say I stopped believing that saying. You gave his hand a gentle squeeze. I allowed myself to become indifferent and jaded, and I decided there was no one else I could trust but myself. After that, it was almost as if the universe conspired to surround me with people that would prove me wrong. He smirked, like he found his predicament humorous. Gon beat you to it, but only by a short margin. On the ship to the exam site, he saw the good in Leorio and myself, even when we had done nothing to warrant such trust. Then you came along, selflessly going out of your way in the Millsy wetlands to help me. And you continued to do so each day, and in increasingly more dangerous circumstances nonetheless. Kurapika was close enough now that if you curled up your knees they would brush his. His slate eyes, now besprinkled with garnet, were shining particularly bright this evening. Pretty, you thought to yourself. They were almost reminiscent of a cinnabar crystal, or perhaps the coveted rare firestone. You were ashamed to admit that you had looked up different gemstones to try and find something to compare the Kurta's magnificent eyes to. I can't help but feel like I'm undeserving of your loyalty. Not only did you waltz right into the fox bears done on my behalf, you even honed your Nen abilities to be useful to me. They have plenty of other practical applications, Pika. No need to be so serious about it. But still, you crafted them with me in mind. And that's one of the most selfless things that anyone has ever done for me. Your goodness truly knows no bounds. Kurapika, you're gonna make me blush. His ruthless compliments were starting to affect you and make you feel flustered. He must have been able to tell, for one corner of his lips curled upwards. Besides, there's no reason to thank me. I'm here to stay. At least until you get sick of me and kick me out. You teased, and his half-smile disappeared. I would never do that. How long does it take for them to fade once the emotion is gone, you wondered, because the glow in his eyes wasn't fading. It only seemed to be intensifying, and you felt like you were staring miles into them. You wanted to compare it to the shimmer of 1,000 rubies scattered across the sparkling seafloor, but that drab, lifeless jewel didn't seem to do it justice. Catching the light, they held magenta, amethyst hues, smoldering embers of a doused fire along the edges. What's more is there lurked an underlying explosive quality, a facet of motion, like a spiraling supernova or the erratic dancing flames of a poor man's rose. No, nothing was quite right. They were simply incomparable. Certainly the proverbial string of fate that tied a soul to its mate couldn't be a more ethereal shade of red. Traveler, you're staring, he stated, almost a little bashfully, but he didn't break the eye contact. I should think so. You had no idea why you just admitted that to him, but you were too mesmerized to even be shy about it. It must have been the spell they put you under. Do I look angry? His brows curled upwards in concern. I can put in my contacts. They were glowing so brightly he could even see the reflection of their color on your skin. No, don't! Why would you ask that? I've been told it's a natural reaction to be afraid of our eyes. That's the main reason our clan chose to live in isolation. There's nothing frightening about them. You gently brushed his bangs away. It's like watching the harvest moon rising. Yes, that was the closest comparable thing you'd come up with so far. You couldn't help but be inwardly proud of yourself. The depths, the shadows, the way it cut through the darkness with its avid glow, red halo encircling it and reflecting a spectrum of colors, all of these things matched perfectly. Only, that's not quite as pretty. The moon can't look back at me. Kurapika was definitely blushing now, a darling rosette across both cheeks. That one struck deep. Receiving admiration for a trait of his that usually evoked fear and condemnation was downright disarming. How was he supposed to slow his heart and clear his befuddled mind enough to come up with a logical response when you quite literally just flattered him to the moon and back. What is it you're feeling right now? Your voice had trickled off to a mere whisper. This was certainly different from Kurapika's anger, you realized. In those moments they blazed brighter and redder, almost like a Roman candle. But they didn't hold the fractals of pinks and purples that this mysterious emotion seemed to elicit. What feeling in the Kurta's heart could spawn such unnatural beauty? You needed to know so you could reproduce it. It must have been positive, right? They were soft, not troubled. And they seemed to be beckoning to you. Kurapika swallowed. He didn't exactly know how to answer that. It could have been any number of things causing his eyes to shine. A sort of warmth was definitely present, coupled with a strange vulnerability that seemed to be increasing the longer he remained locked in your stare. He wasn't stricken by an urge to break it, though, so he deduced it couldn't have been discomfort he was feeling. Belonging was the next concept called to mind, but that word didn't seem quite strong or complex enough. It was more of an attachment clinging to the walls of his heart, a fondness, and the first word he came up with to fit that criteria only made the blood rush back to his face. The blonde eventually went with the safe option and chose to dodge the question. I bet only Melody could tell us for sure. She's an intuitive one. I bet you're right. You agreed. He returned your smile with a slightly weaker one, relieved that you let him off the hook and didn't press the issue. I'm not making you uncomfortable, am I? You retreated your hand when you realized you were still touching his face with your fingertips, tracing shapes at the edge of his hairline. It's just, I've never seen them up close like this before. And I know it would be insensitive of me to try and observe them when you're angry, you know? I assure you I'm not uncomfortable in the slightest. That is, with the exception of the stifling collision in his chest right now making it hard to breathe. But he thought it best not to mention that. I kind of feel bad, though. Huh? What do you mean? I mean, you only have my boring eyes to look at in return. Well, only outsiders who married into our clan had that. So it may be hard for you to imagine. But the fact that they don't turn red is considered exotic to us. You're full of it. You donned a skeptical expression. It's true. I went my whole life believing that I was in the majority. It wasn't until I was at least 12 that my friend told me not everyone had them. You smirked at his tale before curiosity got the better of you. What was your friend's name? Pyro, bitches! To be continued.